This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations. Come for the craft beer, bourbon, whiskey, and great drinks. Stay for the conversations. Here's your host, Jonathan Green.
Welcome. It's kind of crazy to think that another month is gone. We're into February. I hope your year's off to a great start. If you did dry January, congratulations. I hope you were able to complete it. If not, and you just enjoyed drinks, congratulations to you too, and I hope you had some great pours. We got a great episode for you this week. Tasting Notes with Chad Watson, a.k.a. My Daily Bourbon, talking about bottom shelf bourbons and whiskeys, how to find those, which ones you should go for, things like that. And then our conversation this week is with country musician and Kentucky native J.D. Shelburne. It's a fun episode. You don't want to miss any of it. And I'm not going to talk anymore, so let's just get to it.
It's almost time. Where did I put those? Here they are. It's time for Tasting Notes.
We're back again for another Tasting Notes, and joining me once again is Chad Watson. You've seen him on Instagram. He said I could shorten his intro, so I decided to do it this time. So, Chad, welcome back.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
I figured we'd have a little bit of fun, and I feel like this Tasting Notes could be fun because, like I said, previously back in the summer, we talked to you about starting a whiskey collection. You know, we did some do's and don'ts on bourbon whiskey gifts, but I always feel like some people are nervous or just, you know, nowadays everyone wants to buy the nice new shiny things that are coming out for what seems to be absurd amounts of money. But to me, there's just something good about a quote-unquote bottom shelf bourbon. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree with you 100%. And not that I want to consider this a bottom shelf bourbon, what I'm about to sip on right now. It's just something that, for the money, I really enjoy it, and that's Country Smooth. It is, I mean, you see how much is left in that bottle. I mean, I've never had 2-year-old MGP taste this good. I mean, I know it's blended with older MGP stock, but it's just something that's like $30 or something in my area that, I mean, it's just nice to sip on. And this is, I'll come home from work and I'll have a glass or two of this. I'll mix it cocktails. It doesn't break the bank. So I'm an avid fan of that 30 and under, especially the 20 and under pricing. So those are my go-tos.
And I was going to say, it's harder nowadays in my mind because everything that comes out a lot of times seems to be at minimum $40 to $50, most likely over $100 or more anymore. So when you're looking at those quote-unquote bottom shelf, because I feel like that's a misnomer because they're not like bad bourbons, but what do people need to look for, and maybe what are some that they should give a shot at?
Anything bottled and bond. I mean, if it's bottled and bond, it's at least 4 years old. And most people see these bourbons, I mean, they'll see like Benchmark or Ancient Age, Evan Williams, Black Label, some of these other like Kentucky Tavern. They flip it over and they see that age at least 24 months, 2 years, 36 months, 3 years, whatever. And bottled and bond is, I mean, it's at least 4 years old. So, I mean, Heaven Hill's got a plethora of bottled and bond whiskeys. You've got J.W. Dant, which is my favorite of their bottled and bond line, like $14, $15 a bottle. JTS Brown, like $13, $14 a bottle. Evan Williams White Label or Evan Williams Bottled and Bond, like $16 a bottle. And one sleeper one, if you see this, comes in a plastic jug. It's a half gallon only for like $22, and it's T.W. Samuels. And it's all straight, flip it over on the back, aged 4 years, bottled and bond at Heaven Hill Distillery. And it's fantastic. And most people just, you know, I'll talk to people and I'll suggest that, and they say, I don't want that, it looks cheap. Well, it looks cheap because it is cheap, but it's still damn good whiskey. I could serve you that $15 bottle next to the $60 bottle over here, or even this new $100 bottle of 4-year whiskey, and you probably wouldn't know what's the difference, and it might even be your favorite. So it looks that way, so it can stay that price.
Well, and you know, I always feel like too. We talked about this when we talked about starting your whiskey collection. That kind of blind, doing those blind tasting. I mean, you know, obviously you can't always do that, but you know, what is another like? Because I mean, I think you even talked about like a $10 bottle. I can't think of it right now. That I even picked it up.
Earl Settler.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking that cheap, but it's still good, and really you can do whatever you want with it too, and probably not feel bad about it.
Absolutely, man. And that's so I mean, you go to bars or you go to restaurants and here, like there's a place in town. I had a guy at work telling me about today. Like, oh, when I was a friend last night, they had like $10 old fashions, half off cocktails, and I was like, so what's the old fashioned normally cost? Like $19. I'm like, I'm not paying $19 for an old fashioned. What was in it? He said Eagle Rare. I said that's 2/3 the price of a bottle of Eagle Rare. I'm not paying $19 on a normal night for that old fashioned. He's like, well, it's good though. I'm like, yeah, it's good, but I mean, I don't care if I go and they use benchmark in that cocktail, like. But that's how I build my cocktails. Like if I'm making a cocktail at home, I want to experiment. I'm going to experiment with that $10 bottle, that $15 bottle. Because if it tastes good with that, then it should only taste better with a more premium whiskey. And that's not always true. Sometimes those younger, sweeter bourbons like that are around that $15 range, just they need those ingredients in a cocktail, and that's kind of what lays it out. But I think a lot of people, I mean, even those things like I named off, like JW Dant and stuff, I drink those neat, love them neat. Every time, as soon as I get low on a bottle, go grab another one. It's something else. Come home from work, I don't want to thumb through, the closet I have of whiskey in here, or the 70, 80 bottles that I have out there on my whiskey cart in the kitchen. I just want to come in, I want to grab something, pour an ounce or two, and just enjoy it. And those kind of whiskeys, that's what they're there for. They're not there to say like, look at this, but I'm sure you could do that to your friends blind, as I always say blind, because that's the best way to perceive value is blind. And that can really knock someone's socks off.
Well, and it's great advice, and I highly recommend it because, like Chad said, sometimes, it's great to have those fancy bottles, but sometimes there's just something nice about a simple pour, easy bottle that you can go back and get again rather quickly. And that's the key there. And don't be afraid to look at the bottom shelf. Do a little bit of research. And Chad, thanks for dropping a little bit of knowledge on that.
Hey, no problem, man. I have one thing that I want to throw out there for the end, and that is Wild Turkey 101 is probably the most overlooked bottle on the bottom shelf.
Yes, that is a perfect way to end it. Thank you, Chad, for that extra little tidbit.
Hey, no problem, man.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here on the Bar Conversations for our conversation is country musician and Kentucky native J.D. Shelburne. J.D., welcome in.
Thanks for having me, man. What's up?
Not much. I see you're rocking the UK hat, and if I'm not mistaken, you were up in Lexington not too long ago to watch a little basketball?
I was, man. I actually performed as well. It's good to be back in my college town for a couple of days. Man, that place keeps growing. It's crazy. I took a swing through campus, and I hardly recognize the campus these days, man. They've torn down some of the old buildings and put up some new. So pretty crazy, but it felt good to be home for a couple of days to my college town.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't want to make you feel old, but I'm guessing it's been a few years since you graduated.
Yeah, I graduated UK in 07, so as you can imagine, a lot of time has passed since 07, but it just seems like a couple of days ago that I graduated, to be honest, man. It's been a whirlwind ride for me since college, man. That's really when my career took a step up, and it's been a great ride, man. It makes life go by way too fast sometimes.
Absolutely, and we were talking before I hit the record button. You got a son, and I'm sure just watching him grow up is making time fly by too.
It is, man. Yeah, Jax is 15 months, getting ready to turn 16 months here next week. So you can imagine, as you have a daughter of your own, it's getting more to be a full-time job. He's mobile now. He's walking. He's into everything. I have literally 2 autographed basketballs from Kentucky players over under my on top of one of my displays in my studio, and every day he comes over and takes it off and throws it across the room, and I chase it every day. But I'm like, it's kind of funny because he has these 2 huge basketballs that are like twice the size of his head, and he throws them, and it's like I can't get mad at him. It's cute actually, but at the end of every day, I've got to put them back on the shelf like 15 times a day. It's like, oh my gosh. But anyway, it's I'm just glad to see him mobile and just having fun, living life.
And it doesn't get any better. Just you clean up toys. You put them away. 5 seconds later, it looks like a hurricane went through, and you're like, okay, we're just going to leave these out until the end of the day. So, but
you were exactly right, man. I literally just picked up his toys 10 minutes ago, and he came in after a bath, and he threw them all over the floor again. Like he has a ball. I don't know if your daughter had a ball pit, but our son has a ball pit now, and he loves to crawl in it and then flop out of it and throw the balls all over the floor.
She did the exact same thing.
There's like 80 balls on the floor, and it's like to pick up 80 balls takes like 5-10 minutes. And it's like you do that 3 or 4 times a day. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, there would be many times I'd be like running over and like just putting my foot down, and she'd be like, "Why isn't it flipping?" And I'm like, "No, not today, not today." So,
I love it, man.
So but before we get to the music, I know you're a Kentucky guy. I don't know if you got a drink tonight or not, but I figured since you're a Kentucky guy, I get a little wheel horse out of Owensboro, made in Owensboro, Kentucky.
Nice.
So that's what I'm drinking. I don't know if you're drinking tonight, but if you're not, what's kind of your go-to beverage?
Well, yeah, to be honest, I'm not a huge drinker, really. I do have an Evan Williams bourbon sponsor, so I got a shout out to Evan Williams Bourbon. They bought me a new trailer, wrapped it, and paid for every bit of it.
Nice.
And so that's been pretty nice to have them. So I do promote them quite often, and
so that's your favorite. No other questions.
Right, exactly. You know what I always like to say? Whoever sponsors me is who we'd like to promote. But they've been great, man. We just played a show at their Speakeasy. I don't know if you've ever been to Evan Williams Speakeasy.
Not yet.
It's a cool spot, man. But a lot of bourbons have sponsored me through the years, man. Angel's Envy and Jim Beam and a lot of bourbon. Four Roses bourbon. So as a Kentucky boy, man, you want to be friends with all of them.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, you play a good bit over at Evan Williams. I'm guessing as part of the deal too. Go there a couple times, either a month or something like that.
I do a couple times. I do a lot of their social stuff. They have a ticketed event that they do every year at their Speakeasy. We go and play that for the clients, and so that's been a lot of fun. To do that and get to know a lot of their clientele. They have a huge clientele. Evan Williams is, I think, from what I remember, is the number 2 selling bourbon in the world behind Jim Beam. So they've got a lot of people that come in every day that they promote their brand, and we try to help them out as well. So carrying their trailer on the road with their logos all over is great for them. Plus, we play about 200 shows a year, so you can imagine the miles that we put on our truck. So
I was going to say that
it's been a wild year, man.
I was going to say that's I'm saving that one for a little bit later, because first, for those that may not know exactly the music you play, pure country guy. But how would you describe what people hear once you get on stage, or whether they're listening on Spotify or something like that?
I'm definitely country music with more of a rock splash. I think I'm very authentic. I write about stuff that I've lived. I'm come from a small town, so I grew up playing sports, and I kind of write about my upbringing. So I lived on a tobacco farm for many years, and so as you can imagine, all that mixed with like kind of a rock flair. I grew up listening to country music, but also love 90s rock and like Goo Goo Dolls, Matchbox 20. So all that kind of mixed in really helped evolve my sound through the years. And the more I got to playing guitar, and I'll talk about that soon, teaching myself to play, I leaned more towards 90s rock when I was teaching myself songs. And of course, country was Alan Jackson and Garth and all those folks really had a big influence on me growing up. And then when I got into music on my own, it's just like I kind of combined all those and then started songwriting. So I feel like I've kind of got an authentic sound and story of how I got to where I am.
Well, and I've enjoyed your music from the get-go. I got a good question on that one too, because the cover arts, there's a change in how you've looked across all of them. But I want to save that one for a little later. You kind of talked a little bit about this because UK had a big impact in a sense on just you in general and your music because of what happened kind of during your time there. Can you explain how you got into music and the impact of your grandmother's passing?
Yeah, man. So I grew up in Taylorsville, Kentucky. It's a little small town outside Louisville. I like to say kind of between 65 and 64. Little town, kind of knew everybody, and my whole family grew up there. Really, my whole life I didn't play any music. I sang to the radio. We sang on the bus trips to ball games. I played sports my whole life, from traveling ball to baseball to basketball in high school, middle school. And so when I got to meet my senior year of high school 20 years ago, this year 2001. Or 20 years ago last year, 2001. I knew I wanted to go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Music wasn't even a thought, other than just singing on the way to bus trips. We take a school bus to our games, so there was nothing else to do back then. There was no cell phone, so you just sang on a boombox. And when I got in college, I went to Lexington Community College first, and on UK's campus. And when I got to college in 2002, my grandmother passed away back home, and after that, I went back home for a funeral. I came across a guitar that she had that belonged to my uncle. I found out years later, and that kind of found its way back to my car into my dorm room, and started playing it in between classes, and literally just. In between classes, when I'd come home on the weekends, I'd bring it with me. Really, anywhere I went that I could literally play, I would take it. And I just became addicted to playing music and teaching myself songs. And to be honest with you, singing just kind of came naturally. I like I said, I sang on the bus and growing up. So I had tone. I knew how to really sing, and I just learned it on my own. And so when I started playing guitar, kind of two and two went hand in hand together. And the more I played guitar, the better I sang. And the better I sang, the more I played guitar. And so once I got good enough to really tell people about what I was doing, I was, playing for friends, and people back home started getting word of it. And then that kind of led to some paying gigs. And then I started branching out to cities and building a fan base. And then that's when I realized in college that music was kind of on the forefront. I didn't know if I could make a living or a career out of it, but I dang sure wanted to try. And luckily, the cards worked out. I ended up going to UK, getting a bachelor's degree. I got an associate's first, transferred credits to UK, got a bachelor's at UK, and graduated in 07 and off to Nashville. I went in 2008. That's kind of where my story starts.
And I remember reading, too, about when you would go home, you would play in an empty church sanctuary, and that's kind of, I guess, where you honed the skills of being in a mic and a live kind of stage.
Yeah.
How important was that?
Oh, that was super important. Dad was a deacon of the church. I basically grew up in this church in my hometown, and Dad had keys to it. And I didn't really have access to a PA system back then. I was literally still playing at home in the bedroom with just an acoustic, and it was a smaller acoustic back then. And to have that advantage of Dad having keys to the church, I could go down there anytime I wanted to and just pop on the stage lights and turn on the PA. And I can't tell you how many times I did that, man. I mean, I did that 50 to 100 times. Those couple years. I mean, I lived for it. I mean, to the acoustics in an empty church were just something you can only just dream about. And that's really where I started teaching myself to like enunciate on a mic, sing on a mic, learn how to sing on PA systems, because it's very tricky when you're not used to singing on a mic, because the elevation of your voice and just knowing how to sing on a mic. That's where I taught myself. And over the times I spent there at night on weekends. When my friends were out partying, I was at the church singing and playing by myself. Man, it was crazy, but that's just what I geared my life towards, and hoping I could find eventually a career out of it. And I was making a lot of great friends and making some money along the way, and one thing kind of led to another. And as the months and years went on, I became more popular and got more gigs. And it's been a crazy ride. I mean, I've been very, very thankful, very blessed with a lot of people in my corner.
Sometimes you just never know how that journey is going to go, and it's always really cool to just look back and kind of see the steps that were taken along the way. You said you kind of grew up on Matchbox 20, the 90s rock, but also country was pretty big then too, with some big names. Is that kind of what you grew up listening to, or was the as I told Josh Gallagher last week, was the iPod on shuffle? Like we would say these days, growing up, or what were you listening to? Just a little bit of everything.
Yeah, back in the early '90s was MC Hammer and Garth, and I mean, I had a wide variety of stuff I loved.
Did you have the Hammer pants?
I did not, but I actually had the hammer action figure though. I guess it was like a doll, but it was an action figure. It came with a boombox. I had that because it came with a cassette tape. It's funny that I say MC Hammer because You Can't Touch This was out like 32 years ago this past week. So I saw that pop up in my Twitter feed. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I feel old now. But I listened to MC Hammer, to Garth, to Alan Jackson. I loved when Kenny came out, Tim McGraw came out when I turned 16. All those folks kind of resonated with my sound. And then when I got in college, I remember one of the first records I bought, rock records, was Foo Fighters, and then the Goo Goo Dolls, Matchbox 20, and Hootie, Montel Jordan, all those folks I love. Also, I had actually a wide variety of people I listened to that really kind of got me into music. And at the time of the 90s, into the 2000s, when I was listening, is when music started kind of to evolve and change. I mean, country was more rock and roll, and some of these rock bands were coming country. And I mean, I still remember when the first Kid Rock record came out, my sophomore year of high school. I'm like, man, this is amazing. And it's just like, who is this guy? And it's just like, I still remember all these things. And so all those little marks along my timeline really helped shape, who I listened to and what I searched for when I was teaching myself to play.
Hey, I remember all that. I'm only a few years younger than you, so those all resonate with me. The only difference would be when I played sports, instead of having the boombox on the bus, we might have had a little, the actual CD player, portable CD.
Yeah, I had a Sony Discman. It's funny when I go back to my parents' house and stay for the weekend. A lot of stuff that I had when I was a kid still in my old room, and the last time I went home, I found the old Sony Discman. And I still have the Discman at home. I'm like, I wonder if it still works. It's crazy that I still have that. It brings back old memories.
I had that, and then I had a car that had a cassette player, and I had the little converter thing, so I could actually listen to my CDs, because that's how
I
it
remember.
was.
I remember that.
So, you talk about going home. Growing up in Taylorsville. How big of an impact did Kentucky and your hometown of Taylorsville have on just who you are and the music that you kind of write about and play?
Yeah, Taylorsville has been just a huge influence to me. I mean, it's where I got my start. It's where I played my first couple shows. I remember the first time I played in Taylorsville. I played my hometown church on a Sunday morning. Nobody even church. I mean, they knew who I was. They knew my family. I played sports all through school, so people knew my name, but no one knew I was playing guitar and singing. So I think I shocked a lot of people. But I remember playing the Spencer County Homecoming about 2005. And I think about 50 people showed up. And back then, man, 40 people was a lot. And to get 50 was just like, I'm playing on a gooseneck trailer. I mean, I didn't just where I started. Back then, that was big time. Mm-hmm. And, I started on a lot of those small stages and playing in my hometown. So I made a lot of friends and family that supported me kind of where I'm from. So I tell people a lot when they're trying to get started, become a name in your hometown first and then branch out, because that's exactly what I did. And, you those people tell their friends and family, and it's always nice to have hometown support. I think most of them support you even more that you're from there, from where they're from. And so I really excelled at building a ton of fans there first before I really went to Louisville, to Lexington, moved to Nashville. So it was always great to have hometown support. And, they've just accepted my music with open arms. And, I realized, last year when I went home to do my latest record concert, about 10,000 people showed up. So you can imagine how much
just a few more than the 50, right?
Yeah, you can imagine how much joy that I had when I could hear a roaring crowd through a closed bus door that day, and seeing the people in the crowd coming to support my music, man. And it was overwhelming, but I knew I built it. I've been building this for years, so it's been very rewarding.
Well, and you talked about that journey, playing there, just basically being a road warrior, playing almost anywhere that would, you can get some money and have some fun. What's it been like to make that jump from small clubs to a little bit bigger, to a bigger city, then down to, finally Nashville?
Yeah, I played a lot of small clubs in college in Louisville. Louisville was a great scene for me. That's really where I started to branch out and really make a name for myself. Started getting big calls for bigger gigs. I remember the first time I played Churchill Downs Infield on Derby Week. In 2008, we opened for Kelly Pickler. And at the time, I was playing pizza joints in Louisville in front of I was selling out crowds. I was really making these bars capacity, but I was playing in front of 75 people. And when I got the call to open for Kelly Pickler at Churchill Downs Derby Week, there was like 10,000 people there. So you can imagine the adrenaline rush that was going from a pizza joint to the infield Derby Week at Churchill. And those gigs started coming more and more faster. And, the fairs and festivals, you just get such huge crowds, and they're better paying too. So I was making really good money. I was making really good money as opposed to playing, pizza clubs in Louisville when I first started out. So I tried to get as many fairs and festivals as I could, but I didn't really have that much of a following. I mean, I had a following, but I didn't have that much of an EPK that would really help me get my name out. I hadn't been on CMT yet. I hadn't had any radio success. I hadn't had much under my belt other than local gigs. So I really couldn't sell myself as a regional act other than I was just still local. So, those days early on, I really tried to teach myself and try to find ways to get more fairs and festivals, because, man, I was going from playing bars, from playing 2 to 4 sets a night, to playing a festival and just playing 1 40-minute set and being done and making more money. So it was like I was trying to figure out how to get more festivals, and as I became more popular and getting more gigs, my EPK started building, which is a promo, and for those who don't know. And those things, everything just kind of started to fall into place, and I was just working around the clock, man. Just like you find something that you love and you want to do. You just trying to find ways to get better and to find more contacts and opportunities, and that's what I've excelled at.
And I was reading too, because I think you had this thought when you were making that full-time commitment, because it's one thing to say you're going to do it, it's another to actually do it, because you'd gotten your degree, you were thinking about going to Nashville. I mean, what pushed you over that edge to kind of make that decision? And obviously it worked out very well, but I mean, it had to be a little bit scary at first.
It did. I think my parents really pushed me over the edge, because I got to be honest. When I was in college, I just graduated UK, and I moved back home for the summer, and I worked this terrible job at this company in Louisville that I was working with people that had no college degree, that were like, were getting a second chance at life, and I was just sitting in this room and one day, and I was doing this computer work, and I was thinking to myself, man, why am I here? I just spent 5 years in college. These people I'm working around had never been to college, and we're making the same money, and it's just like, why? And so I remember I was still playing locally around Louisville and New Albany. I had Triangle Talent booking me some smaller shows, but at the time they were big shows. I didn't know any different. I was just getting paid to play, and I was kind of at a crossroads in my life where I was like, gosh, do I move to Nashville and give this a shot, or do I just stay in Louisville and just, raise a family there, and hopefully it works out on the local scene? And it just wasn't enough for me. And so I remember I had played at Steinert's Pub in New Albany, Indiana one night. This has been probably 2008 or 2007. And I just graduated college, and I came home one night. My parents were sitting on the couch, and it was about midnight one night, and I knew something was wrong, because when I got up to the back of the house, all the lights on the living room were on. So I was like, okay, something's up. And when I walked in that day or that night, Mom and Dad sat me down. I was like, hey, if you want to go to Nashville, like, you got to go to Nashville. Like, we don't want to hear about it anymore if you don't. So you either, it's just like you either go or you stay home and forget it. So the next 2 weeks I spent sending resumes online, and I ended up, Dad and I drove to Nashville. I think a week after that meeting, my parents just sat me down and had a heart-to-heart and said, we'll support you. You got your degree. Let's go to Nashville and see what you can do. And they helped me get down here. And I was when I moved down here in February of 2008. And I remember the first weekend that my parents, they dropped me off. We unloaded my U-Haul. They stayed a couple of days, helped me get settled in. And that night they went home, a tornado hit my parents' farm and just disintegrated some of the barns, tore up some of the house, tore down trees. So it was kind of crazy, man. I was wanting to go back home, and that really kind of because that happened at home, I wanted to be home. But for some reason I stayed, man. I was kind of one of those guys. I didn't like to start a job and not finish it. And so luckily I stayed and kept hustling, and I worked a couple side jobs at healthcare companies to make ends meet, and started making some money on music. And I just always was looking for that next opportunity. And that's how my journey started, man. And
you're still going.
It's been a crazy, man. I'm still going, and it's been very rewarding, man. I'm very blessed to get to do what I do for a living. Well, and I got some great fans.
And you talk about it too. You hit like 200 shows a year. I think I read you 2,500 shows in just a couple of years. I mean, what's it's like? I mean, to perform. I mean, is that just a rush for you? Is that just something that you kind of can't explain unless you do it?
Yeah, it still is a rush, man. I get a rush off booking shows. I mean, because you will and deal price. What can we get you for? Can we get you this? Can we get you for this? And can you do full band acoustic? So I get a rush off booking, because I book a lot myself. And then of course I have a team that books me as well, and they'll run these bookings through me. So it really just depends. But I mean, when I perform, I still get the rush. I mean, there's nothing like it, especially my hometown show. We got to open up for ZZ Top this year. And to go out in front of ZZ Top at a sold out crowd in the Iroquois Amphitheater in Louisville, man, that was a rush I can't even explain. But I get that rush a lot, and I've gotten to play a bunch of big shows where the crowd's just pumped, or they're just amped to hear you sing and to see you perform. And it's a great ride if you can just find your niche and find your fans and just stay loyal to them and just keep building them, because I'm living proof of that. I mean, my fans would just come and dance in front of me all night long and sing my songs. And it's just like, you think they get tired of my music, but they just keep wanting more. It's just like, it's crazy, but very humbling. So the live shows is exactly where I've made my fans and where I have set myself apart from the rest.
And is there like a favorite place that you've been or gotten to perform, or maybe just where you've gotten to perform with someone like a ZZ Top and some of the other big names that I know you've been kind of fortunate to open for or play with?
Yeah, I played a lot of great places. I gotta say, I saw my first concert in Freedom Hall in like '92. My parents took my brother and I, and Garth played the show. And the first time I got to sing at Freedom Hall was a pretty significant moment for me, because I'd spent my whole life actually growing up going there. And it's funny, I'm gonna show you this right here. I actually have it on my wall here. In 2016, I actually framed the ticket. That's a ticket to Freedom Hall, and opened up for Craig Morgan, a part of the Mid-America Truck Show. And that was monumental for me to know that, my name was on a Ticketmaster ticket, and then I got to play Freedom Hall, the arena where so many greats played before me, and it was packed. And so, to play there, it was pretty awesome. I got to play the State Fair main stage at Cardinal Stadium several times before they tore the old stadium down. I played Rep Arena. I got to do the Ryman Auditorium for a gig once in Nashville. But I got to play Kentucky Speedway. I played a Chicago White Sox game. So a lot of those places were like huge facilities that I didn't even think I could even get that far, honestly. And once I got there, I was like, it's funny because some of these venues you play, you're like, oh, man, I bet it's going to sound amazing, and it sounds terrible. You're like, how could this venue sound terrible? Oh, it's like iconic, but that's happened a couple of times. But there have been some venues that are like, wow, I could sing on this every night.
Well, I think too, like back to just all the different places you've played. How different is it playing from the pizza joint, in front of 70 people, 50 people, to a tour? I mean, how different is that for you? Or is it all kind of the same in a way?
Oh, well, the sound doesn't even compare. When you play a pizza joint with like a couple tops and a monitor, and you may have subs, you may not, so you don't feel the kick of the kick drum. But then you play a festival or a place like Iroquois Amphitheater, or gosh, I've done so many festivals through the years. It's just no comparison. I mean, when you play in these big PA systems, and we played Hometown Rising a couple years ago, and Tim McGraw headlined it, and I think I remember counting, and this wouldn't even matter to anybody else, but I think I counted like 25 subs, and I'm like, if you can imagine, most pizza joints had one sub, if that, but you play on a festival, it's got 25 subs, and it's like, it literally rattles your insides, and
you can feel the music.
Yeah. Oh, you can totally feel the music, and it just amps you up. That you're even more hyped up for the show, and it's just like when you go from those bars, because most of the bars I played in the area, most of them either had terrible PA system, you had to rent your own, or they didn't have anything at all. And so, or what they had was one speaker worked over the two, and you just made it work. And so it's just like, I remember those days, man, and it's just like, back then, I just was lucky to be playing, and now I look back, I'm kind of spoiled. I'm like, gosh, if I'd have known, I brought my own PA, but that's part of it.
Well, and I read too. You talk about the Taylorsville show where you had 10,000 people show up for your album release, and just how cool that is. How important is it for you to keep coming back here and playing? Because some people, they'll come back from time to time to their hometowns, but it's not maybe the place they play a lot. But I mean, you stay around in Kentucky and kind of make sure people know, still go, hey, that's JD, I remember him.
Yeah. I feel like Kentucky's really where I started, and I've got a lot of fans back home, and I really enjoy playing there more than any other place in the country, because people know my music, they know who I am, they love what I do, and so it's hard to stay away from those crowds, because they really made you who you are, and it's just fun. I've gotten to know my fans, and fans usually turn into friends if they truly support you. And just going back home it's just like, we still keep getting calls, and people are like, I've had people say, don't you ever get tired of playing Kentucky? And it's like, no, not really. It's like, why not go back to the place that loves you and sings every song you ever recorded and buys tickets to your shows? I mean, my hometown show, I sold $12,000 in merch in one night. Why wouldn't I go back home? It's like, these people will buy anything. And, it's just the biggest merch nights I've ever had has been in my home state. And so we'll always go back. And I feel like you also got to stay out there back home, because we don't want people to forget about you. I mean, there's artists coming out every day that think they're the next big star or got a great song out or whatever. And it's just like, I don't want those. I don't want my fans to forget about me. So I'm always trying to stay relevant and stay in the area. And luckily we still keep getting booked.
Well, and even your latest album, Straight from Kentucky, it has that Kentucky vibe. I mean, how much of Kentucky is in that, and what can folks expect when they play that album?
Yeah, when I wrote the song Straight from Kentucky, I was actually had just been selected to be on the cover of the Kentucky Tourism Guide. So as you can imagine, that felt pretty humbling to be selected. Out of all the artists in Kentucky, they picked me to be on the cover of the Tourism Guide. So that album was kind of coming out about the same time I found out I got that opportunity. So I wrote that about being from the state and just how proud I am to be from the Bluegrass State. And it helps me share that with the world. I mean, I play in Vegas, Chicago, New York, and every time I go to these places, I have no idea what Kentucky's about. I mean, people literally think that we don't wear tennis shoes in Kentucky. I'm like, that's a joke. I mean, that's a lie. And it's like, I tell people all the time, like, this is what Kentucky's about. The bourbon you're drinking, we made. And it's like the horses you're betting on, we run. And it's like I try to educate people that don't understand it, but everyone wants to visit us. And I try to tell that in my story. And my record, I think my record is probably the best collection of songs I've recorded because I really took time. We had a pandemic to go through, so I spent more time listening, more time writing. I found a producer, Phil O'Donnell, produced my record. He's got huge numbers under his belt. He's written number ones for everybody, and to have him on my side, was huge. So I feel like I got a great collection of songs, and so far, I mean, it went to number 9 for us on the iTunes. And to me, as an artist that's not signed with a big time record label at Sony or Warner. Like that was a big deal. I mean, I was surpassing my heroes on that week of my album release. So you can imagine how much pride that felt to experience that, and it's all because real fans that have followed me since my pizza joint days that bought my record.
Well, and a lot of good songs on there. Hometown in Headlights. I mean, stuff like that. I mean, were you just drawing from kind of things that you experienced while whether it was here or even when you were working with folks writing?
Yeah, it kind of was, but it's funny, man. I think not to really brag on myself, but I feel like I've always had a good ear for good songs. I remember back when I was a kid, mom or dad would buy me a record at Walmart, and I could go through the record in my Discman, and I could tell you what single was going to be next. I don't know why. I just had a good ear for a good song, and this is before music was even thought of. So I mean, I was literally picking Clay Walker's hits before they released. I remember when George Strait's "Blue Clear Sky" came out. I knew exactly what songs on the record were going to be hits, and sure enough, they were. And it's just like that trait I have used since I moved to Nashville, and like I feel like I just have a good ear for songs, and I've just listened to so many songs. I know what a good hook is, and as I've released songs through the years, my selection's gotten better. And when I put this record out, like the Hometown of My Headlights, I didn't write. A buddy of mine sent me a CD full of demos, and I heard that song, and I just couldn't stop listening to it. And I'm like, I've got to cut that. I don't know what it is about that song. But we did, and CMT picked it up and took it to number 2 on the chart. It was number 2 on the 12-pack a few months ago. So, I feel like I've been blessed with a good ear about finding good songs, and luckily, I don't know where I got that, but it's worked out.
It's a good thing. I mean, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. I joked a little bit beforehand. Looking at the album covers for some of the singles and so forth, I feel like there's a change in your look. Can you explain the hair through the years?
I know, right? I think when I moved to Nashville in 2008, I had just grown my hair out. So I had hair down to my shoulders. And for whatever reason, I don't know why I did that. I think I really wasn't. I was a country artist, but everyone was like, dude, you're not a cowboy. And I'm like, I know I'm not a cowboy. Cowboy hats, I look dumb in cowboy hats. So that was never an option for me. And I started spiking my hair a little bit. Then I started growing my hair out in college. And the more I grew my hair out, the more I didn't want to cut it because I'm like, it takes so long to grow out. I didn't want to cut it. Well, I met a publicist back in like 2016, I believe. And she was like, I think the first thing I want to do for you is change your look. Let's make you look younger. She's like, I think you look younger with shorter hair. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, you will look much younger. And I got the perfect person to do it. So the lady who styles for Carrie Underwood actually cut my hair the first time. And let me tell you, man, it was heartbreaking because all this hair I'd spent a decade growing was just like falling to the floor. And I'm like, oh my God. But once I got the hair cut up on the floor and I started spiking the hair up, she taught me of some styles with some different gels. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I think it helped. I remember that post that day for some reason on Facebook was just I got so many hits because I just posted a picture of the hair on the floor and it's like coming soon. And everybody's like, "Did you cut your hair?" The good old days, man. I'm glad it's gone. Forget the long hair. I'll never go back.
Your wife is not going to approve that.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think she likes the short hair.
Now,
Yeah.
Now you also talk about going home, different things like that. Also, reading up, giving back's a big thing for you, very important. Whether that's raising money for various charities, playing in your hometown, different things like that. Why is that so important to you and so big for you?
Well, I feel like, God blessed me with a talent. And, growing up in church, my parents always taught like to give back. And that's one thing that I've always taken pride in. And now that I have a platform with fans, like I feel like I should take more opportunities because I have such a large network of fans that can pitch in and help. And, that's really how I got started. Playing charity events was literally the first thing I started doing out of college to really get my name out. I mean, I was playing events for Susan Coleman, for St. Jude. I used to host a St. Jude benefit, a softball game with a hometown radio station, and we'd raise money for St. Jude kids. And then I would just give it different charities, blessings in a backpack. And those are really, in my early days, what really helps kind of get my name out. And that's why I continue to do it. Of course, I just love to give back. And then as I've gotten older and I've gotten a larger fan base and I've gotten, info on helping other charities I didn't really know anything about. It's just like, I feel like people are amped up more to contact me and stuff. And so I remember this past year, I was reading Facebook downstairs on the couch one night, and I read this post that a friend of mine posted that she had, her best friend had lost her home to a fire, had like 2 kids, husband, and it was like 2 weeks before Christmas. They lost all their gifts and they were homeless. And I was like, man, something just hit me. And so I put a thing out on Facebook and ended up raising several $1,000s for them. Just because that post I read, and fans, I have a lot of great diehard loyal fans that love to give. And so I was able to give this family a check for several $1,000s on the day before Christmas. And just because I wanted to. And I feel like, with an army of fans like I have and really anything's possible, and helping charities is something I've always loved to do.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with giving back and being able to use the platform that you've been able to build up. And kind of as I finish this off, we're in a new year. You got the album that just came out last summer. What's in store for you in 2022, and what can folks expect this year?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you letting me tell my story, and I'm hoping this year is better than the last. I mean, I feel like last year's gonna be hard to top. Last year's the biggest year of my career. Every year since 14, I've had a more successful year the next year. So I get a little nervous every year because I do a lot, and I get to achieve a lot of goals and meet a lot of fans. And it's like 2021 was pretty awesome. We did People Magazine, had a top 10 records, ZZ Top show. I did 150 fairs, festivals, events, and so. But I always tell myself every year, like, I know I'm going to get more shows, or I'm going to surpass or get some cool goal, but we'll just keep riding off the success of this record and play as many shows as we can and try to get booked as much as we can. One of my all-time goals is to play the Opry, so I'm hoping the Grand Ole Opry calls. That's been a goal since moving to Nashville, and we'll just keep making the name and building the brand and see what happens. Pretty excited to keep it rolling.
Well, and like I said, it's been a crazy journey so far, and a lot of good things along the way, a lot of good music. And if you want to find out more about JD, jdshelburne.com. You can find him on all the social media as well. JD, I appreciate this. This has been fun, and it's always good to talk to, that little blue and white UK guy there. I love it, talking to a Kentucky guy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for letting me share my story. And I love what you do, man. And here's my goal this year is to see Kentucky basketball win a national championship in person.
Ooh.
So we'll see what happens, man. And I'll be rooting on the Cats. And thanks for sharing my story. And we'll catch up soon.
Absolutely.